Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Price, and I am with the Price Group at Keller Williams. And I want to welcome everyone to our webinar this evening. We are talking about purchasing your investment property, whether it be your first one or building out your investment portfolio that you have already started. Welcome to the Price Group's Investing Series Part 2. You might have joined us in the past for our first session of the series. And if you did not, no worries, because tonight's information is still going to be extremely helpful, and you'll be able to apply it to your knowledge that you're building about becoming a real estate investor or continuing that journey, even if you didn't get to see our Part 1 series from the past. And also, what you can do is after this webinar, reach out to us and we can get you the link so that you can watch the recording from Part 1 of our investment series so that you can have all the information right at your fingertips. So let's dive in. All right. As we start this conversation this evening, and we look towards kind of what we're going to speak to this evening as we move through our information here, we want to first take pause and note that there are lots of different investment strategies out there when it comes to real estate. The strategy that we are teaching in our Price Group series currently is the strategy based upon the book Hold. And that book is written by Steve Shader, Jenna Stoddy, Jim McKissick, Linda McKissick, and Jay Papazan. So giving them credit for that strategy in which we teach here at the Price Group. Okay, so let's dive right in. In Part 1, we focused our conversation on how you create your personal investment criteria. Okay, so tonight's conversation is going to focus on something different. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how you create your property criteria. So again, when you're thinking about investing in real estate, there's a lot of things that you want to consider before you just kind of start house shopping, right? So the investment criteria is where you're going to think a lot about your financial goals in the investment that you're making and so forth. And again, tonight we're going to zero in on, well, how do I find the right property for me? And let me also caveat in our conversation that per the fact that we are teaching the hold strategy here, this is an investment strategy that speaks to holding property for a long term, meaning purchasing long-term rental properties. There are lots of different ways that you can invest in real estate, from short-term rentals such as Airbnb type projects and or flips. And our conversation in this investment series that we're currently running is focusing on holding property. When you own a property that you rent out to tenants for a long period of time. So that is how our focus is structured this evening. All right. So what we're going to talk about when we're thinking about tonight we're identifying the criteria of the property that we're wanting to focus on with our investment strategy. So there are 5 factors that you're going to want to be specific about: location, property type, economics, the condition of the property, and features and amenities of the property. So tonight's conversation, what we're going to do is we are going to go through each of those 5 factors kind of one by one and give you some thinking points about what you want to consider as you process through those 5 factors. Now, something that is very helpful is that you do not have to go at this alone. So one of the services that the Price Group here at Keller Williams offers is we do offer complimentary consultations where we can sit down with you one-on-one and go through both your investment criteria and then also help you identify your property criteria. It's really, really important in any real estate purchase, whether you're buying it for your own single family residence or whether you're purchasing a property for investment purposes, such as a hold property. It's really important to always put your strategy together, gather the facts, get clarity on what it is that you are seeking before you jump into the market and looking at houses and all of that. Looking at houses and going house shopping, that is oftentimes a lot of fun, but you want to make sure that you have your criteria nailed down first so that you're leading with logic and not leading with emotion, especially when it comes to the fact especially when it comes to the context of wanting to purchase real estate for the sole purpose of investing. All right, so number one, location. Let's take a look at that. When you think about the criteria around the location for your property, there are lots of different ways to think through it. One really simple kind of visual way that you can do it is to first get an organized map of the location that you're thinking about. So, what do I mean by organized map? I mean a map that is visually identified by zip codes, or what we have all across the nation is what we would refer to as MLS areas. So, the multiple listing service areas. As real estate agents, our MLS map is divided into different areas, and that's a separate location type of organization that's separate from zip codes. So it's just a different way of defining locations on the map, so to speak. So if you want to visually get an organized map, from there, what one strategy that works really well for folks is to identify what your radius is in terms of how near or far away from your investment property that you desire to be. So why might that be important? Well, especially if it's one of your first properties or your first investment hold property that you're purchasing, you might not yet be working with a property manager. You might be potentially deciding to take on kind of some of those handyman type repairs yourself. And so having that property near you in terms of your driving time and so forth is sometimes a very important factor to a lot of investors. So a good general rule of thumb kind of across the board is for it to be 30 miles, or depending upon where you live, maybe it's not so much mileage, but it is more of drive time, right? Around where you're spending the majority of your time day to day, especially if something comes up where you have to get to the property unexpectedly, and kind of unplanned. So a lot of folks will think about their location of their home and their location of their employment. And they'll kind of plot those on the map. And then they'll decide on the radius. So let's use that 30-mile kind of average and draw a 30-mile radius around their home and a 30-mile radius around their place of employment. And then it is as simple from there as looking at where those two circles overlap. So where you have overlap, where it's 30 miles from your home, 30 miles from your work, that tends to be a good location strategy for a lot of people. And so that gives you the awareness of where to zero in. And so if you are doing that mapping over top of a zip code map or over top of an MLS area map, it is gaining you the advantage of getting clarity over, in an organized fashion, where to look for property that is meeting that location criteria that you have set for yourself. Okay, so from there, once you kind of have those radiuses mapped out, plotted out, and visually identified, this is where, if you haven't yet, you're going to want to really connect with a real estate professional. So all of us here at Price Group, we are happy to help you with this. This is what we do day in and day out, all of the time for all of our clients. And what I'm referencing is that you're going to want to connect with a real estate agent, a real estate professional who can help you gather research and correctly analyze the data to help you interpret it correctly in terms of the locations that you're looking at. Well, you're probably thinking, what is the research that I need to do? What is it that I need to analyze and understand? And so as you have zeroed in on that those specific areas on your map, the criteria you're going to want to examine and understand is, what are the current selling prices or the current market conditions of that area? Okay. So in the world of real estate, sometimes we reference that as a comparative market analysis. What is the average typical home in that area currently selling for? Okay. And then in terms of market conditions, that's when we're looking at things like how much inventory do we have on the market? How many days on the market? Or is it taking property to sell? And all of that kind of influences the environment of the market that you might be purchasing in, which is important for you to know as an investor. You're going to also want to understand what the average rents are in that area. And you're going to also want to understand what the historical property appreciation rates are. We'll probably talk about that more here in a minute. But what's important to understand, if you were with us in part one of this series, is that our our average historical appreciation rate for real estate in our country is 4.4%. Now, here, as we find ourselves currently in the summer of 2022, we know that the past 2 years have seen significantly above average property appreciation rate. And while, going into 2023, over the 2024, 2025, 2026, it is projected that that appreciation rate is going to slow. It is also projected that it is going to slow towards stabilizing back right around that average of 4.4%. So while we know that that is the country's average of property appreciation, as you are zeroing in on specific communities or specific neighborhoods, you're going to want to work with your real estate professional to do research, to look at the market trends of those areas, to identify if their specific, that micro market also trends in accordance with the average or with the current market conditions in terms of how that specific area is showing its historical property appreciation rates. Because obviously you're going to want to invest your money into a property that shows proper alignment with the trends of appreciating. It's an investment, right? And another thing you're going to want to look at is the rental vacancy ratios in that area. And that's another way of saying kind of looking at the supply and demand in terms of opportunities for people to rent property. Okay, so those are some things that as you meet with a real estate professional, what you're going to want to focus on location wise. Now, the other thing, as you're kind of wrapping up this conversation around really zeroing in on the specific location of focus, is that ultimately all of this research is pointing us towards a place of wanting to identify specific neighborhoods that maintain their value. So that's when we're talking about that historical property appreciation rate. You want to maintain the value and be in a desirable location. And so what is considered a desirable location? That is specific, community to community. Some communities have a big driving factor for them around schools. Others have a driving factor maybe around parks or recreational type amenities, those types of things. But you're wanting to ultimately identify an area that both maintains its value and is considered desirable, so that it attracts people to want to live there. Because if you're holding a property for investment purposes, you're going to want people to be attracted to want to live there and rent that property. So now that we've talked about analyzing the location, the next thing that we want to dive into is really thinking about what property type that you're wanting to focus on. And property type, when you've got your investor hat on, is typically what we're looking at is, are we zeroing in on single family opportunities, or are we zeroing in on multi-family opportunities? So multifamily, when we talk about multifamily, that's duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, apartment complexes, right? It is one structure that can have multiple tenants in it. And a single family is just that. A single family is a house that you're going to rent to one family or one tenant. So while everyone has different thoughts and perspectives on investment strategies, it is often considered by investment experts that for investors that are focused on obtaining property that has the most reliable demand. So you've got people that are always wanting to be there, always, lots of demand for tenants to keep your vacancy low to zero, and appreciation. So for positive property appreciation, so the value of the property that you own as your investment is going up year after year. So if your driving factors are reliable demand and appreciation, that tends to be in really good alignment with single family homes purchases for your hold strategy. However, for investors who are primarily have a first primary motivation around cash flow, so the positive cash flow month to month, multifamily purchases tend to generate a higher degree of cash flow. Again, kind of on a very simple high level, you've got one structure in a fourplex situation with 4 different tenants in it. Other things that people will often consider about multifamily purchases specifically is, in addition to looking at that cash flow opportunity, a mindset around multifamily purchases is that the vacancy situation is kind of felt a little bit differently. If you're holding a single family property and it's vacant, you've got no revenue being generated on that property until you secure your next tenant. If you have a fourplex and you have 1 unit in the fourplex that's vacant and 3 units are occupied, well, that vacancy is going to impact you in a much different way, because you're still generating revenue on 3 different units within that single structure. Now, while that can be seen as a benefit, the kind of the other side of that scale that you want to think through on a multifamily purchase is that since you have 4 units in this scenario we're talking through in one structure, that is 4 times the amount of maintenance, right? So that's 4 times the amount of bathrooms, that's 4 times the amount of kitchens that require maintenance. And again, however you have yourself organized, whether it's through having a property manager as one of your expenses in your financial plan for this investment, and or it's yourself acting as the maintenance manager of the property, that is going to impact the amount of maintenance that is needed in both time and expense. So those are some things to consider when you're deciding on whether your focus is going to be single family or your focus is going to be multifamily. So we said that tonight we were going to cover 5 factors when now you're determining your property criteria, when you've got your investor hat on and you're working to either purchase your first investment property or building out the investment portfolio you currently have. So another factor that you want to consider is the economics around your criteria. So economics, what are we talking about with economics? We're talking about price, the price of the property that you're going to purchase. We're talking about what we're going to call the discounted rate. So we'll explain about what that is here in a moment. We're talking about projected cash flow, and we're talking about appreciation. Okay. So price is how much it costs. When you work with your real estate agent and you make an offer and you offer a sales price, that is the price. That's what we're talking about pricing. Discounted rate is talking about what the property is worth versus what you're able to purchase it for. Projected cash flow is talking about, and we dove into this deeper in part 1 of this series. So make sure that you connect with us so you can get access to watch part 1. Projected cash flow basically has to do with, on a very high level synopsis, is after all of your expenses are paid on the property each month. And so you have all of your expenses, and then you look at the revenue or the income that you have coming in from the rent that you're charging. Is the difference positive? You want to have positive cash flow when you purchase a property in this hold strategy. You want to make sure you have positive cash flow as you're working your numbers. And then appreciation, what we spoke to earlier this evening, is how much does that property appreciate year over year? Again, the whole reason that so many people invest in real estate is because it is proven that if you hold it over a long period, oftentimes 5 to 10 years, that is what we're talking about. So perhaps not just 1 year, but you hold property over time, the positive appreciation is going to work in your favor. Real estate costs more tomorrow than it does today when you're talking about the trend of appreciation. And so that is why it can be such a smart investment for yourself. So let's talk about price here for a second. Unless you're purchasing with all cash, step 1 that your real estate agent is going to help you execute is that you're going to want to get connected with a lender and go through the pre-approval process. Getting pre-approved for an investment property is a similar process as getting pre-approved to purchase your personal residence, but the criteria it's going to feel like the same process, but the criteria of the loan product is a bit different. So you're going to want to get your letter of pre-approval from your lender as step one. From there, once you understand how you're going to have your loan product set up with, and you understand how that letter of pre-approval is written, that's going to identify your purchase price that you're going to shop to. That's going to identify part of your criteria of your home search. So then once you have that pricing determined, then we go back to that map that we spoke about earlier tonight when you're looking to identify your location. And now we're going to zero in on now what neighborhoods in your mapped area of interest also meet your price criteria, right? So it's as simple as if your letter of pre-approval, as you've worked through with your lender to around the loan product that is going to be a fit for you and your goals with your investment purchase, has you focused on purchasing property that is priced at $300,000 or less, then obviously you're not going to want to focus on neighborhoods that likely carry an average purchase price of $450,000, right? So it is understanding the specific neighborhoods within your mapped criteria that is also going to meet your pricing criteria. All right. Okay. So that's price. As we go on here, the next thing we're going to talk about is discounted rate. So as we go through our slides here, we're going to kind of dive deeper into that. And so the discounted rate, again, is the difference of the discounted rate is the difference between what the property is worth and what you purchase it for. All right. So remember the list price of a property. Okay. The price that is advertised by the seller as this property is for sale is $300,000. That does not mean that that is the appraised value of the property. That's just what the seller has said that they want to sell it for based upon the seller's knowledge, based upon the seller's motivation, based upon all kinds of factors. It is not based upon that is what this house is worth, right? So for example, remember sellers can be motivated by a lot of different things. And sometimes they're motivated by time. And sometimes they're motivated by convenience. And sellers that are motivated by time, like they've got to move quick or they've got to offload this property quick. And or convenience, like let's just get this done. I've got other things I need to focus on. When sellers are motivated by time or convenience, sometimes their advertised list price is less than that of what the property is actually worth. So it is just important to understand. A lot of buyers think that the list price is the value of the property. It is not. It is the price that the seller has identified. The value is determined by what a buyer is willing to pay for it. And an appraisal provides a structured analysis of the property that identifies, per the current market conditions, what the property is truly worth in today's market. So when we're talking about discounted rate, what we're talking about is if the property is worth this here, can you buy it here? And the ratio or the formula that the hold strategy speaks to is the goal would be to secure the property's purchase price for 10% under market value. Okay. So that way you have automatic equity built in to your purchase from day one. So the discounted rate, again, allows you to the day of closing have built-in equity. So it helps you to lower your risk, quite honestly, because you already have equity. And when you think about it like that, another term that investors will often use is that they're going to make money going in, right? So if today I'm buying a property for 10% less than what it is worth today, then in theory, you wouldn't turn around and just sell it. But in theory, if you had to, you've already made the money. You already have an investment that is worth 10% more than what you had in your financial portfolio before you bought it. And if you're thinking, oh, come on, like, how do you, yeah, that sounds dreamy. How do you like a seller is going to sell you a property 10% less than what it's worth? The answer to that is yes. You just have to connect with a professional real estate agent that is able to find different opportunities for you. And again, remember that sellers are motivated by different things. Not every seller is solely motivated just by price. When it is a win-win or no deal all the time, but it can be a win for a seller to sell their home at a bit of a discounted rate if their primary motivator is time or convenience. And again, working with a real estate professional of your choice will help you to find those opportunities. So in the economic conversation, again, 10% is what you're wanting to focus on. And how do you even know? Well, and you're probably thinking, well, how would I even know what the parameters are in which to be able to calculate the 10%? That is why we go back to what we spoke to earlier. When we're analyzing the location with your real estate professional, you're wanting to look at market conditions, market trends of that community that you're looking at. And that's where I reference the comparative market analysis. So as a real estate professional, I'm able to say, oh, you might be interested in Sunny Acre Estates. And we can do analysis and research on that neighborhood specifically to let you know, hey, within the last 12 months, the average price point in this neighborhood has been X. The inventory is sitting at Y, which is often called the absorption rate. The days on market, how fast do properties move here, which often is an indicator of both market condition and demand. We can tell you all of that just by doing research on a neighborhood that you have identified as a place of focus. So when we already understand that, we apply the same analysis here at the Price Group. When you get ready to purchase a property, before we write the offer, part of our commitment to our clients, whether you're buying your own single family residence or you're buying a property to hold, we will do a CMA, again, a comparative market analysis on the property before we structure the offer. So that is how this is directly applicable to the discount rate conversation. We will do the research to help you understand, hey, this is what, our research is pointing towards the fact that this is what this property is likely worth in today's market. Again, an appraiser is going to verify and validate that also. But a CMA is a real estate agent's way of thinking like an appraiser. That's the best way to explain it. So we can identify what that value is, which again might be something completely, it might be in alignment with the list price, it might not be. But you as the investor are wanting to focus on what the value is based upon the data. And then the goal would be to negotiate and secure the purchase price for 10% under that. That is how you work through the discount rate. The cash flow goes back to our conversation series 1, where you are analyzing basically all of the expenses that you have in holding the property, and you're holding that against the income that you're going to generate from renting it, and you're wanting the difference between the two to be positive. Now, how much positive, that depends upon the criteria, again, that we would have identified with you through our part 1 of our series. In the hold strategy, it is thought that, especially in a single family residence purchase, if you're cash flowing $100, $200 a month, that is positive cash flow. So it doesn't have to be that you are cash flowing $1,000 a month, depending upon the criteria of the whole purchase. But what it does need to focus on is that it has to be positive. You don't want to break even. And you definitely don't want to have a negative cash flow. You don't want to have to spend money additionally each month in order to be able to hold your hold property. That would be working against the goals that you would have. And then again, we want to really make certain, we're going to talk about that appreciation rate again. The median appreciation rate is 4.4%. And so we want to really make sure that we're focusing on a property for your investment portfolio that is within a community or a neighborhood or a micro location that also is trending, ideally at least that 4.4% average. Okay, so as we round out our conversation tonight about the 5 factors to think about when you're identifying the property, that is what part 2 of our series is about tonight. Another factor that you want to make sure that you're considering is the condition. Now, a general rule of thumb is the lower the condition of the property, the more the discount that you should be able to obtain in negotiating the purchase price with your real estate agent. However, that requires some math to be done, because if the condition of the property is lower, it has maybe some maintenance and repairs and such that are needed, and helps you to purchase it for lower, that's a win. But we're going to want to do the analysis to understand what is the price of those repairs, to make sure that that just because we were able to purchase it from the seller at a discount, we want to make sure that the pricing of the repairs, coupled with where the pricing to the seller, we're going to want to do an analysis to make sure that at the end of the day, when you look at both sets of pricing the seller and pricing of the repairs, that you are still making a smart economic financial decision based upon your criteria. So pricing your repairs is a very important part of the process also. And then in some situations, you are either able to negotiate with the seller, your real estate agent on your behalf, of course, or you can purchase for yourself at closing a home warranty. Home warranties are purchased for a 1-year period at a time, and it provides it provides some protection for some repairs that may be needed in a property that are not pre-existing. Okay. And your real estate agent, and definitely us here at the Price Group, we can talk with you more about exactly how home warranties work, and what you want to be mindful of with that. But just know that that could be an asset that helps you to mitigate your risk with the condition of a property. All right. So as we are rounding out this discussion, the fifth piece of criteria that we're going to want to look at are features and amenities of the property. So features, that's as simple as what we're talking about there is the components of the property: bedrooms, bathrooms, garages. That's what we're thinking about. And you're going to, again, when we're doing a study of the neighborhoods of focus that you've plotted out on your map by your location criteria, you're going to want to understand basically like, what is the average? And then your property that you purchase, you're going to want to make sure that that is in alignment with the average. So if the average for that area is, say, 3-bed, 2-bath, you're going to want to have pause over the idea of a 2-bed, 1-bath, if that is not the average for the area. Okay. The other thing that you want to think about is that properties can offer different amenities. Sometimes amenities can be ones that you've got to be careful, could actually turn to a negative for yourself, such as a pool, because it could open up additional liability expenses, increased insurance, those types of things. And then other times amenities can drive the value of the property up, meaning that it's more desirable for people to want to live there, which could help you to charge a higher monthly rent. So sometimes amenities could be if you're purchasing in a community that has neighborhood spaces, right? If there is a neighborhood pool, that's fantastic. You don't have that liability, but your tenants have access to it in that example. Or perhaps an amenity is you are within walking distance to a park or a nice green space. So you're going to want to understand the features of the property itself, the amenities of the property itself, and the amenities of the location that the property is situated in. And ideally, the amenities that you're going to want to focus on would be ones that would help make the property be perceived as a higher value, which would help you charge a higher monthly rent, which is going to help that cash flow number be more positive and be in your favor. All right. So as we wrap up our conversation tonight, as we discuss this, again, this is the Price Group's investment series part 2, based upon the hold strategy. So holding long-term rental properties. Additional points to consider is that as other ways that you can learn about the property and things that you want to pay attention to, either before you write the offer and or as you're moving through any contingency periods, such as an inspection period that is allowable in your contract, you're going to want to make certain that you review the seller's property disclosure. In most markets, that is a document that your real estate agent can obtain for you, oftentimes before you even decide that you want to schedule a showing of the property. That is typically not something that is available on public real estate search engines, but when you are working in connection with your chosen real estate agent, they should be able to get you that document for your review. In fact, here at the Price Group, we think it's a huge win for our buyer clients that you review it first before deciding whether or not you want to invest your time to go take a look at the property. The seller's disclosure is going to give you a lot of insight into the property, into the age of its various components and things like that, that are going to be very helpful for you to know when you are considering whether or not, especially from a condition standpoint, if it meets your criteria. The other thing that you're going to want to look at, especially if you are purchasing a single family residence, is you're going to want to understand if that property is within an HOA or any other kind of like city ordinance governing body that could have restrictions around whether or not the property can be rented. Not just because you own the property, if the property is in a neighborhood that doesn't allow properties to be rented, you can't rent out the property. Also, sometimes neighborhoods, as part of the HOA or communities, I'm using those words interchangeably, sometimes part of their criteria is that they do allow properties within that community to be rented, but only to a certain percentage of the total properties in the neighborhood. So for example, there could be a neighborhood that says we allow up to 20% of the residences in this neighborhood to be rented. And so you want to be mindful of that as well. And then that would then cause you to want to check, well, how many rental properties do we currently have? Is there room for me to purchase a whole property in this neighborhood within that percentage or ratio? And then the other thing that you're going to want to make certain of, and your real estate agent should be able to guide you on this at a very high level. And of course, Price Group can help you with this, is that you're going to want to think through when you make your offer on a property, you're going to want to think through your options on negotiating around an inspection period. And depending upon your specific contract that your real estate agent would negotiate for you on your behalf, that inspection period is going to allow you a certain degree of contingency, and what that is going to help you do is it's going to give you additional time for additional research for the property to make sure that it's checking all these criteria points, from the economic points to the condition points and things such as that. So just be very certain. Yet another reason that before you ever begin walking into houses to check them out or go house shopping, you want to make certain that you're having a consultation with a real estate professional so that you understand how inspection periods work in the market you're shopping in. You understand what types of contingencies you do or do not have access to. You want to make sure that you understand kind of the rules of the game you're getting ready to play before you get onto the field to play the game, right? So consultations with real estate professionals before you walk through properties is one of the smartest things you can do for yourself, especially as an investor. So with that being said, please keep in mind that one of the services that we offer here at the Price Group is we offer complimentary consultations, whether your goal is to sell property, buy property for yourself as your single family residence, and especially per tonight's conversation, complimentary conversations and consultations around helping you to develop a strategy and criteria for your investment purchase, right? Because you can make money for sure through real estate. It's a very smart way to invest. You want to make certain that you're staying true to your criteria. So your real estate professional will help you identify that criteria. And then from there, you're going to want to be accountable to the criteria you set. Hold yourself accountable. It is especially when you are purchasing property for the sole purpose of investing. Okay. It's not where you're going to live and, all of those kind of intangible pieces of value that sometimes come into play when you're purchasing your own home for you to live in. Uh, that's off the table when you've got your investor hat on. You need to identify your criteria and then be accountable to it. A lot of investors get in trouble when they start moving too fast, kind of going with their gut feeling, and especially kind of basing their thoughts around criteria, or basing their thoughts around data that is not factual, or that they don't understand, or that is kind of hearsay. You don't want to do that. You want to be methodical in your approach, identify your criteria that serves you and your goals and your plan, and then be accountable to it. If the property doesn't meet your criteria, it doesn't meet your criteria. And here at the Price Group, that's what we would call next, right? Just the next opportunity. So make sure that you use your criteria as kind of your guiding light for what it is that you're going to do. And that is how you're going to have the safest and most successful investment experience and outcome. And again, consult with a real estate professional before you house shop, so that you are leading yourself with logic. You're protecting your hard-earned dollars that you're turning around to invest in this purchase. And you want to protect that. It is your investment. So protect it, lead with logic and not emotion. And that is a good general rule as you adventure down this really exciting journey of becoming a real estate investor. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening for our Price Group Series Part 2 of buying your first or next real estate investment property. You can find us at choosethepricegroup.com. And I want to really encourage anyone who's joining with me this evening, reach out to us, schedule your complimentary consultation today. Get it scheduled. You can go to choosethepricegroup.com and you can schedule it right there online. You can also reach out to us at info@kwpricegroup.com. And we would be honored to sit down with you and help you understand help you. We want to understand your goals and help you make a strategy for how you can make that happen for yourself. So that's what we love to do, and we'd love to make it happen for you. So again, now that we've wrapped up our conversation tonight, I would like to encourage you to do two things. I would like to encourage you to reach out to us to schedule your complimentary consultation, and also reach out to us so that we can connect you with the recording of our investment series Part 1, because that's going to have a lot of helpful information in it for you as well. So again, I'm Emily Price, and I'm with the Price Group at Keller Williams. And it was a pleasure getting to chat with you tonight about how to put your investor hat on and invest in real estate. It is a great way to build your wealth. And here at the Price Group, we would be honored to help you in that journey. Thanks so much.